in this episode, you've probably pressed it because you need it. Tom Lomenzo is a friend of mine, but also a holistic lifestyle coach and a tennis teaching professional. This guy understands fascia and tennis and human performance while incorporating some very ancient philosophy into his approach. I got to watch him most recently at Confluence introduce a whole class to Rudolf Steiner while doing spinal twists, pronating the feet, and chanting aloud about how powerful they are. Tom, not only do you have a wonderful podcast called Home Court Health, but I really see you branching into the teaching and the workshop space. So thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us.
It's already a pleasure and a privilege to see you, Brooke, and it's gratifying to hear that my workshop at Confluence landed with you in those ways that you highlighted, because to me, they're threads in the fabric of what I am seeking to create and bring all these things subtly to people. And for you to appreciate the spinal engine aspect, the footwork aspect, the vibratory element of using this instrument as our body, that makes it even more enriching for me to know that you were there to receive all of that. So thank you for inviting me today. It's humbling and exciting.
The efficiency in the exercises that you taught, I thought is so captivating, and I can't wait to have you hear it for our in studio broadcast so that you can show the audience how to participate in, for 3 minutes, jump up and down and say these things with your arms overhead, to spin and play a game with your brain, with your weight. I do think that as a coach, you're pulling people into listening to their body in a very unique way. So let's just start there. How would you define health?
It is all aspects of oneself that supports seamless vitality, abundant vitality. And that's why I felt the allure, the pull, the magnetism toward holistic health, because that is the broadest portal to be able to especially walk through with people in service. And I'm sure you've learned this, Brooke, whenever you, however people find their way to you. And since you are someone who is inclined to go to the depths of yourself first and then with people, then, I mean, that's the most engaging aspect, because I've found for myself, my first portals to health, capital H health, were through movement as an athlete. And so first level was, what can I do to improve my physical health? And so that gets you into all types of different training and diet, supplementation, etc. And then you unearth the mental aspect. And okay, what can I do to improve my mental game, my mental health, my mental acuity? And you realize that it really does not end there, because there's the emotional component. And you say, well, how can I tune into this energy and motion throughout my body? And then even there's another depth that leads to a spiritual life. And so I've found, and that certainly relates to some themes that I hope we'll talk about, for instance, freedom, which is one of my favorite tomes that Rudolf Steiner produced, and it was one that I recommended to you, The Philosophy of Freedom. That spoke to me. I mean, it really is a nebulous term, freedom. People have, there's as many definitions for freedom as there are people, I would imagine. And Steiner mentions that as well, that we all have, I can use that word and it probably means maybe 5 or 50 different things to you, to say nothing of whoever is listening to this. And that's a level of our relationship to self and world that has unlocked so much health for me, because it then took me into the legal versus lawful space. It took me into, what does financial freedom mean? How can I be more free in my relationships while my, I was going to say obligation, my connection is still there, because obligations are something else entirely. So I think of all of that as supporting boundless, seamless vitality.
I love that answer. And I actually want to just add a thought of freedom is
Please.
the freedom of time. So horology is the study of time.
Mm-hmm.
And like in America, we see time as like a very linear construct. So it kind of, we're like always running out of it because there's only so much of it in a day.
Yeah.
But in other cultures, the center of time is relationship.
Oh
Isn't that
man.
curious? Just sit with
Yeah.
that. That's enough to chew on for a month.
It is,
I've been,
that's why that guttural reaction came totally unbidden from me, because yeah,
I know.
that's profound to me. I'm gonna chew on that for sure.
Yeah,
for
me
them.
too. As someone who lives and abides by a schedule, I'm like, my next open appointment is 3 weeks from now
Yeah.
on a Friday. I got 1 hour.
Yeah, and
um,
I get that construct, and still, what has liberated me in many ways is tuning much more into the cyclical nature and saying,
mm,
okay, we're coming up on the summer solstice. It's summertime again. It's Thanksgiving again. It's confluence again. It's time for my annual retreat again. It's my birthday again, and that can I think maybe dizzy people with that circumambulation aspect that can send you into a spiral. Although I think, as you know, Brooke, I think it's a good thing to spiral. So as I mentioned
Tom,
in my workshop.
when I was thinking about this this morning, the horology concept has been like an everyday thing of like, wow, the study of time. Could we be wrong? Is it less linear? Is
Mhm.
it, how can I kind of break my brain to consider a new reality? If the center of my time was relationship, how much more patient do I get with my cat, with my mom, with my dad, with my brother? So this morning I realized if I'm lucky, I'll get 60 more Christmases. Isn't that so?
Yeah.
I'm 35, so I'd be 95. And it's like my grandma, both of my grandmas right now are around ish that age and like looking at their last years. And it's like, wow, imagine if the reverence we can take when we look at, okay, it is June 11th, maybe we get 60 more. So how are we going to enjoy that? I know it reframes it
Hmm.
in such a way where like the reverence, the joy of life is ours to grab. So I have been witnessing a pattern with the people that I love that kind of get tired of health. To them, health is, something they read on a cereal box. It's something healthy because it's listed here, but the relationship to what actually makes someone healthy, just with food, with water, with their lifestyle and their routines, it's kind of a muck right now.
Hmm.
And in the wellness community, like, how many people are like, do this, do that, do this. But you and I both know that health it's a love. You have to fall back in love with the foundations of what you are. And if it starts physical, like maybe you just want to get abs, but then in the relationship of trying to get abs, you discover like, certain foods make you far away from abs and certain foods make you closer to abs. And so you have this conversation with food that actually becomes more mental, more emotional. Like, well, is this good? What is this? How much of it can I eat? When do I feel bloated? What's the difference between being sated, which is perfectly full, and
Hmm.
satiated, which is uncomfortably full? And we start to develop a listening relationship to the inside of the body. And I think you and I have both found protocols that we love, that give and invest back to our health. And so health to me is like learning to love ourself. And I see a real blockade in some of the most amazing athletes where they have pushed their prowess so much that they're shooting for a goal, but they have numbed the feeling.
Hmm.
So they push past pain. They push past fatigue. They're using their strength basically against themselves. And I was wondering if you could speak like as a strong man who has a relationship to vulnerability, how your journey to like listening again to perhaps repressed feelings was and is in you.
Thankfully, I had as one of my first role models Paul Check, who constantly reminds people that a labor of love is sustainable. So if it is something a labor to initially, as we talk about the good work, I'm doing the work. I have generally adopted, as you have, Brooke, in many ways, that I'm mostly doing the play. It's become a much more playful experience to, for instance, be that noticer, be that observer, and I call it the catch. The moment between when I act out of conditioning, programming, fear, scarcity, etc. And then how long does it take me to catch myself and cradle myself, caress myself, and say, ah, like you got this. You know better. It's time to do better. I love you. You got this. Because and I use that language. I tell everyone, you are the best coach you'll ever have. Brooke is going to be a world class coach. I do my best to be an exceptional coach. And still, what we're inspiring people to do is have that better relationship between the coach between your ears and the coach inside your chest cavity and rib cage, and be able to coach yourself from there. And if you were the most encouraging, empathetic, supportive, compassionate, loving coach, then you would not reject yourself. You would not so heavily criticize yourself when you do fall short, when you do miss the mark. And I mean, well, thankfully, being in a 13-year loving relationship has been probably one of the most significant aspect, not probably, clarify and stronger language here, because she is that strength to me, constantly challenging me to visit those aspects of myself, those parts of myself that show up in ways that are not supportive of our growth and my growth and our ability to build a life together, because they are obstacles to health. To be stagnant in the patterns for myself that keep me boyish, childish, ignorant,
So your relationship has kept you like softening.
very much so. And this is the magnificent balance of being in love with, I think especially a woman like Jordan, is that the softening is there, and we were talking about this before. This will be my invitation to speak about vulnerability. I'm so grateful for the shift that I had, and part of me knew this, I think, somewhat instinctively, intuitively, that for as much as we talk about men being more vulnerable, vulnerable does connote that whatever structure is being built is liable to fall, is liable to fall apart. So vulnerability instead is much more of a strengthening process, because I know from personal experience, if I have avoided those opportunities in which I can be radically honest, not only with myself, with someone who I think is potentially judging me or criticizing my downfalls. And that's really not what wives and women do. I mean, that's not what they want to do, I don't
We want to
think. I mean,
nourish.
yeah, and you can do that still by observing. It's not about constantly, using fluffy language and doing the avoid dance, in lockstep with me. No, it's about calling attention to it, inviting a man to then recognize for himself and say, here's how, because men have that problem solving instinct as well. Here's the problem, here's my solution, here's the work. And then the accountability follows. So that's a strengthening process. It does require a little bit of that softening at first, of revelation. And but if it's done, if you're hard pressed to do that, meaning if we take a rigid approach to that and we take hammer and anvil to ourselves, trying to constantly mold, not all of us have that capacity to go through that crucible all of the time. There does have to be first that seed of self-love, as you said, because that will make that labor is then sustainable, to constantly look to mold and relate to myself in a healthful way, in a way that inspires health to be full, not to be constantly drained through. Because you said, Brooke, and I'd love to kick it back to you for a moment, where you think are we teetering toward that edge for athletes? Because that has trickled down to general, I would say, fitness and movement culture. Is people doing more, consuming more, and therefore losing the aptitude to be in relationship. I like to say a healthy body is a sensitive body.
Yeah.
The Rafael Nadal documentary just came out on Netflix, and he had a degenerative foot issue from the time he became a professional tennis player. 20 years on, 22 majors later, he became known as the guy who was in love with suffering. And I think at the highest levels, and I believe you mentioned this, and if you could refresh my memory, in your program, you did that breakdown of the difference between, I think it's bronze medalist, silver medalist, gold medalist, and their relationship to pain. I mean, yeah, if I had a two-legged approach to send back your way, it's, are we nearing the edge where people are more inclined to choose the path of holistic health that keeps them sensitive to what their body needs, or are we still, going toward the white light at the end of the tunnel and it's a train coming at you because you think you're just going on the same track and reach your destination? And yeah, I'd love to hear what your up to date take is on that.
Well, I find that, wow, great question. Thanks for bringing me in. I love where your
Yeah,
head's
yeah.
at. Um, where are we at? Fucking Big
Where
Pharma's
we
winning,
at?
bro. Big Pharma is just ripping people into this injection thought that like the fluids
Yeah.
within your body have to be moderated by something outside of it. Like, how are we doing? I wish my company could do what the peptides are doing. I mean, I got tech bros in the medical space that are pulling $1 million a month because like people are just all on the peptide movement. And
Yeah,
not
but I got my abs from doing. I mean, that's where I've been able to maintain mine, is from musical breath work. So
So I appreciate Mighty Breath, you guys. Gives
yeah.
you abs. because you poop and the
Yes.
muscles work. Like that's what we got to clean the
Yeah.
system. So how are we doing? I feel like women are looking at themselves. I feel like the outside in approach is winning still.
Yes.
And then they're starting to use language that's more like eat this and it's good for you. So they're
Mm.
trying to get into the inside out, but it's not real. It's still an illusion. It's still a fakeness.
An inversion. Yes.
Yeah. So I think to me, the the real branch, this is the schism that I see between like the textbooks and the big pharma psychology and the truth is the fact that people see themselves as something that needs something from the outside instead of, if my body is lacking something or if there's a dysfunction within my body, let's uncover it together to
Hmm.
make it feel more free. And like freedom to me is flow. The body is made of rhythmic fluids that change textures, basically like a long river, right? Or imagine like a super long straw. And then it's twisted and then folded millions and millions of times. That's what creates our body. And when we get into the simplicity of like a live, fresh cadaver, okay? A live, fresh cadaver teaches us very different things than cadavers that have been soaked in formaldehyde for 6 months. And so, as our imaging keeps improving, and as we start to get more therapists and PTs inside of cadaver labs, and athletes inside of cadaver labs, we start to see the giant separation that anatomy textbooks and physiological textbooks have made us understand the body in parts and pieces compared to we grow the tissue all together. And then the tissue is being grown by the resonance, the magnetic resonance of the heart and the brain.
Hmm.
So, like when we look at causative formation of a cell and how the cell forms perfectly or imperfectly, we have to have a conversation around water and electrical input. And the electrical input is also magnetic. So, like as our cells right now are reproducing itself, it depends on the rhythm in which we breathe and the amount of electrical and fluid flow that we have coursing through the body with ease. So, where are we? I feel like the average person is still far away from seeing their pinky toe as connected to, the right side of their head. But if you and I have something to say on it, it's the conversation of them understanding that has to do with an inside out approach. A book can't teach someone what piezoelectric is, but if you take your hands and you cup them around your mouth and you hum into them, right? If I ask you which part of your hand perceives the hum first, you'd be like, well, all of it. Your whole hand is coated with the sound. That's what piezoelectric is. So, really, there's a real solid argument to be made that the fascia doesn't end at the skin, that
Hmm.
it is what connects us to the subtle electromagnetic fields. The water within us is what's interpreting these fields, and the body itself has an intelligence ability to perceive way faster than our mind. Arguably 30,000 times faster. So like where are we? Like are we
Well,
in
yes.
intelligent conscious breathing structures that like us as athletes witnessing yourself in the flow is the greatest thing as an athlete. And I think that we can sense a division of like the mental thinking and the intelligent body. And there's a reverence that we gain when we realize the intelligent body has a system all on its own. And like when we're doing muscle memory, Tom, with our athletes, how much are we just coaching the shapes of the intelligent body?
That is the goal, and I think you've done an excellent job of wrapping all that. If I can put a bow on it, it's just to punctuate and say that I am still confronted with how much of people really are still dependent upon an outside in health process. And as I said, that's a lot of where I started is what do these weights do for my ability to, well, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really think about it weights as improving my ability to move. That came much later. And that's one thing I'm elated to talk with you about today. And still, yeah, it's what will what will impact me from the outside, and yet everything you described, our charge, which is how I do my best to communicate it to people, those are all inner processes. We have no conscious control over how our blood courses, how our heart vortexes. We can nourish and nurture the way our fluids run, as you so brilliantly described it, as the long river of our body, and still it really won't depend too much upon external savior modalities. It's yeah, that is the place of health, is that ease. And I just interviewed a guy, Tommy Hughes, who was at Confluence, and he's been a long time, despite growing up in Kentucky, long time Chinese medical practitioner and student and naturopath. And we talked so much about that because that is one of the core foundations of that particular practice, is how do we promote easy flow of all fluids, of all electrical elements of the body. And a little inside baseball, one way that I love to do that is I am an advocate of baths. It's June now, and I will probably take one tonight after a very physical day and getting ready for another one tomorrow on the court. And one of my favorite things to do, Brooke, is I submerge myself just so face up. And I can take up a tub. I'm 6'2", 200 pounds. Like the water's going places, but I at least get my face exposed, but my ears are covered, and I do long exhale hums, and I am literally bathing in that receptacle of sound. And I mean, even when you talk about doing something like this, hand in front of your face, talk about free energy, talk about simple free practices that you can do to start to feel what an inside out expression health is, of vitality as well, when you can provide your own charge like that just came from you, just tuning into a rhythm, a polarity of inhale exhale that you possess. And when we're at our best, we can just let it flow.
What you're describing is more like a ritual.
Very much so.
Chanting with the water of your tub in the cave of the
Yeah.
bathroom. Like you've kind of
In the
recreated
dark.
a monk
Yeah.
setting.
Oh yeah.
When we think of monks chanting in a cave mountain, I really think, Tom, that they were using their sound to harmonize with each other and then harmonize with the mountain itself so that they could draw upon the battery, like the tuned battery, the ancient tuned battery of the mountain.
That's an impeccable image just to consider.
Why do all the monks chant? It's because like when we're chanting, we are structuring the water inside of the body, which allows us to play with the battery. So like a lot of people now are starting to get into like going outside, touching the earth, sunshine, you guys, sunshine on your belly 20 minutes a day. If you're only going to like stand out in the sun for 20 minutes, make sure you're getting sunshine on your visceral organs. In America, we're so obsessed with the brain, but your visceral organs produce a ton of things for you, ton of energy. What is your favorite? I love that you shared the bath ritual. I'm going to have to send you my favorite salt bath mix. It's like
Oh,
an
please.
electrolyte mix for your fascia. What are the most powerful rituals that you recommend to your clients for them to start feeling this softening of their field, this subtlety opening up?
I I feel really lucky that the serendipity of my life has led me to what feels like the pinnacle of so many practices just by, yeah, I ascribe it to nothing else other than serendipity. And my first foray into Qigong was with people who had been doing it a long time and encouraged me to do a 100-day Gong. So I was doing this last year at Confluence, was probably 30 or 40 days in. And that certainly spoke to me so much more, Brooke, than just sitting and meditating, because simple movements, what Paul Chek, what I learned from him working in, knowing that this was a deeply restorative yin practice that still made me feel like an athlete, still bolstered that archetype of myself, because I'm doing thing like the archer's bow, like the fire breathing dragon, these, and I picked probably about half a dozen movements or so that I would do every day for 100 days consecutively, or else start again. And that's what a gong is. And right now I'm 89 days into a gong of breath work every day, and I'd say at least half of those have been mighty breath. And we'll talk about the fruits of that here in a moment. So with that experience behind me, I felt like that as a general energy cultivation was so significant that if I can offer, especially people who have either an aversion or just no exposure to practices like that, then these are significant. Of course, when I'm at my best of best, it's sunrise, bare feet on the ground, as naked as is possible, because if you can't be naked at home, where can you be naked? So that was significant as a ritual, because it's related to, there's a rhythm to the day in which to do that. And then d- aligned with that was my pure good fortune of finding my way into a program created and offered by my now good friend Jared Picard of Be Here Farm and Nature, and my now good friend and teacher Edmund Knighton, who for 40 plus years now has been immersed in the world of Waldorf education and has been a down through the ages disciple of the work of Rudolf Steiner. And one of the pillars of the program, which was first a men's group, now it's a men and women group called Being Human. One of the core pillars of that were these somatic movements related to the self-mastery principles that Steiner taught. And Edmund was the one who synthesized and co-authored them from that work. And those became my supreme somatic ritual, and still are, to the point where I was so inspired to give that workshop at Confluence. And now, starting tonight, and we'll wrap with this as well, really commencing in earnest on the solstice, we've turned that into its own program. Because in Being Human, the other work we get into is a lot of it is into Steiner's work. There's extra resources for extracurricular activity. There's the community aspect of weekly calls and things like that. This program is just about these embodiment practices. And they've become, for me, Brooke, and I am so thankful for the feedback you gave me and others did, that the doors and the portals that can be opened through that type of ritual are, I think about my vocation as being able to elicit people's potential. And then of course I hand them the reins. I have, if you know who John Wooden was, the historic UCLA basketball coach, something like 11 or 12 NCAA championships back in the 60s and 70s. And he said, teaching is information transfer. Coaching is helping someone write a story they otherwise might not have written. And that's what I feel is my vocation for coaching, is helping people co-author their story for a time. Maybe I'm just an editor. Maybe I'm just a proofreader. Of course, inner authorship is the antidote to AI, artificial intelligence. The antidote is inner authority, inner authorship. Credit to Tom Barnett for thinking of that. And to bring this full circle to the somatic experiences, what is one of the most paramount and special gifts of being human is to have this embodied experience. And what is an inner life, a spiritual life, without being able to have a physical embodiment and expression of that? And so these, I use your word, devotions, these rituals, this practice that promote certain aspects of clear thinking, willing, equanimity, positivity, balance, harmony, to have a movement or two directly aligned with those has been, truly one of the most seminal experience of my embodied life. And so those are the things that I'm excited to now bring to people, especially athletes, to be, because I like to say I teach body awareness, which leads to self-awareness. So I'm teaching one thing and you're going to teach yourself the rest, because that was my experience. The greater amount of body awareness that I have then brings me to that place of sensitive health, where I can consume something, I can feel something, and have a pretty short distance in time, such as it is, between what that initial reaction is and then what will my chosen response be. And that, I believe, is why, my understanding is, Steiner started with thinking as a first principle of self-mastery, because we have this unique experience as humans to choose our next thoughts. More often than not, we don't. And that's why we have practices of meditation. That's why we have practices where we minimize the clutter and the inputs, especially for creatives. There's only so much input you can take before something does have to come as originally as possible
Has
out
to
of you.
ebb.
Yeah, very much
Yeah.
so. Very much so. And that's the point where I find myself now, is I feel like I've consumed sufficiently. And now I have much fewer inputs, especially as I'm in my creative space of developing my programs, offering services to be able to, certainly articulate as seamlessly as possible. And so, yeah, these rituals, I'm happy to share more, and I'm looking forward to that day when we get to do them live and bring that to be an intimate part of your world, because they are that special. They are that timeless and profound, because they cultivate a rich inner life that becomes a full expression of health life on the outside.
I love it. I would say that we are in the process. Like, I like that you're saying you're helping someone write a story that they wouldn't also write, like as a coach. But I would argue that we are behavior modifying.
Mm-hmm.
Good coaches are behavior modifying by eliciting hope. So you give
Yeah.
an athlete that feels stagnant hope in this direction that they will improve, that their potential is on the other side of it. And then if we do our job right, we actually modify their behavior, which requires us to neuron interrupt, requires us to tell them a new story about who they are and who they think they are. And so often, Tom, I'm reminded that like so much of pressure, so much of dealing with pressure has to do with who the fuck you think you are.
Yeah.
At the end of the
Oh man.
day, it's who do you think you are? And financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, the stories that we tell ourselves end up being what we walk into.
I'm
And
I'm so happy you said that. Just if I can interject,
yeah.
hopefully briefly, Johnny Wilkinson was probably the best rugby player of his generation in the 90s and early 2000s out of England, and he played the number 10 position, which is in rugby is essentially the court. There's 15 players on the pitch per team, and the 10 is the playmaker, usually the one who kicks to goal, the one who is at every breakdown, every time the ball goes down in a tackle, they are usually first one on the pile to then distribute, call all the plays, move the ball around, field general. And so he was that role, and I've loved listening to him talk post career, because he's gone through very much of building himself into that warrior athlete archetype that is so consumed by their ability to constantly conquer, more of a conqueror. I mean, warriors, they feel like their life is on the line every time, because they bring so much of
Present
they.
moment.
Pardon me.
They're like the present moment.
Yeah, but he talked about, he said, I was at my most present in between the whistles, but every moment leading up to a match and every moment after was, what am I going to do to preserve the who the fuck I think I am? The winning rugby player, the guy who's going to lead England to World Cup glory, or else. And he said it was a suffocating pressure. I mean, he said it was shocking that I was able to achieve flow as often as possible. And he talked about when he was at his best, that his definition of high performance was total engagement, which means a full holistic appreciation of, I can make this goal or I can miss it. We can win, we can lose. I can make this tackle or I can miss the tackle. I can achieve glory or I can embarrass myself. He said, but that, I got to be good with, who do I think I am? Is it really, and it's the cliche of all athletes, is my result going to be, so much of what's out of my control, going to be what defines me, or am I going to be stoked and, genuinely delighted and joyous about my process? Like, fuck, I absolutely left it all out there. If some bloke is better on me than the day, or 15 other guys are, or 23 other guys are, great. And he said, which I've heard people speak about before, especially if we bring this to tennis, is you start to invite authentic challenge. You don't say, oh my gosh, I hope they're going to double fault on set point. You say, no, I hope they hit their best serve so that I can make my best return. I mean, you start to really dig in, because you have that appreciation. And Roger Federer talked about that. He said one of his great mantras was, be free in your head, be free in your shots. Knowing that if I'm going to miss, it's going to be the most beautiful miss. It's going to be the most violent, aggressive, confident miss. And then I put my racket in the other hand, walk it off, and shrug and say, all right, let's get the next one. And so that level of transcending pressure by going into presence, and like I said, just the full appreciation of anything can happen, and I'm good either way, because I'm not going to beat myself. I'm going to keep going for it. I'm not going to be taken out by the facade of who the fuck I think I am.
In your practices that you do, you have people do these spinal twists, which get both part of your brain working, right? So if somebody at home, I know that like Tom's thing is it's full body. So if you're listening, we could try like a micro version. This would be my stab at it, Tom, would be a spinal twist while saying something like, I am powerful, I am wise, I am strong, I am powerful. I am wise. I am strong. And in doing so, the spinal twist itself lights up both sides of the brain. And then if we were to add, like, I loved how you were having people pronate their feet in twisting so that you were
Yeah.
playing a game with their weight, you were playing a game with their brain. And what people don't realize is, like, with the world champions that I've interviewed, they all told themselves they were world champion before they accomplished it. You cosplay as this successful, like, we live in our imaginations. And athletes and artists are, in a sense, playing a different game with their battery, charging themselves up and then exposing, ripping their soul out during that moment of tension, then basically kind of hitting a wall, total dopamine recovery lost, hangovers for athletes and artists the day
Yeah.
after a big thing. And then depending on how much friction you give your brain, if you were successful or not successful, this frictionless recovery inside of our mind, to me, is everything as a golfer, because you have 15 minutes between shots. I only take, really like 60 shots, and then 12 of them ideally are just like little tap in putts. So, how present, and to me, present is keeping the conscious mind where my feet are, where the intelligent body is. When they're together, that's when I can be present. Whether I succeed or fail, frictionless recovery either gives me more energy for the next shot or less. And I'm sure in tennis, like, if you fault on a serve, like, what is your ritual inside of your brain and body during the, like, right after a failure, you have to step up and hit another shot. What do you do in your head?
Yeah, so different dynamics of something like a serve. You get two serves in tennis, and in between first and second, or even if you step to the baseline on a significant point, you're down a break point. Meaning, if you lose this point, you lose your service game, and that's a very truly vulnerable position in tennis. And I went many years, as I would say, many of us do who play tennis, leading with the negative instruction. Don't double fault. Don't screw this up. And as you have learned, I'm sure, the brain really has a hard time grappling with those kind of, it's like coaches saying, don't fuck this up. Don't drop that ball, don't go off sides, anything like that. Most of us have had coaches who lead with that instead of, you got this, focus, best effort, best process, whatever. So ritual really is the word that we use for something like how you step to the line for your serve, because it is that exceptional shot in tennis where you get to hold the ball, toss and hit. So ostensibly you can do whatever you want with it, and best players in history have been able to master that to the greatest degree. Roger Federer, my favorite player and true role model growing up, he did not have the biggest or fastest serve, but he was a placement and precision over power. It was still a high-powered serve, and simple rituals are great. And so for me, whether it's a first or second serve, I always have the same ball bounce. It's 4 times. So even that little bit of chaos, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 4. Novak Djokovic used to have the yips because sometimes it'd be 1 and other times it would be 17, literally. And he would have a very hard time being able to ground himself for that. So for me, and I coach this to people as well, it's bounce, breath, ball. So whatever, if you do something with the bounce, if it's 1, if it's 8, do that. The breath sequence it's an exhale as you right on the cusp of starting your motion, inhale so you can load up that right amount of tension, and then it's exhale on contact. And then the ball is, full undivided attention on your toss the whole time. Because I tell people, especially, so many women that I coach, women have such a high care factor for tennis, and they're so passionate about it. They lead their households. So and thankfully my astrology tells me I work well with women. So I'm well placed to do this. But I said, and this is not just women, but the head wants to be ahead, meaning it wants to be ahead of the body, sneak a peek at the great shot that you just hit or not, or the one that's coming back. And talk about being beyond the present moment. That's how small the margins are. I mean, it's one of my greatest plagues in golf is sneak a peek. And good luck making anything even remotely resembling clean contact. If it's a putter or a drive, it doesn't matter. It's the same in tennis. And so that level of presence is what's required. And then in between, should I miss? That's usually when I use the cleansing breath. Is there does have to be something, if I miss my first serve, there's no reaction. And I mean, this is one thing that I offer people. I said, you will become, I mean, I mentioned this to people. So there's ratings in tennis. 5-0 is what's generally regarded as an exceptional recreational player, usually college level and above. So you're playing college tennis, it's top flight. It's not world class, but it's top flight. And then usually club level is 4.0 ish, and there's above and beyond. But I said, you can be a 5.0 in your rituals. You can be a 5.0 in your preparation. You can be a 5.0 in your mentality. You can be a 5.0 in your footwork. You can be a 5.0 in your sportsmanship. How about be a 5.0 in those moments where other people are being children? I hear it all the time. People miss the first serve. It's fuck. And I say, if you can be the person who doesn't react, first of all, they'll think you're a psycho, in a good way. But like that has won me so many more matches lately, Brooke, in the last couple of years, is being the guy who, yes, I feel it, but it's not disappointment because who I am is not tethered to did I make that serve or not. And so I go in with much more freedom to attack the next one and not be tentative if I can help it. And then should I miss, I feel like I missed because I was going for it. These are the rituals that are essential. And Dr. Jim Lair, who was a Floridian and regrettably just passed away, he worked with a lot of golfers, swimmers, Olympians, tennis players. I think as an individual coach, helped the most individual athletes to reach world number one, Monica Seles, Novak Djokovic in tennis. And he's a real loss in the sports mental game world. And he popularized by creating what's called the 16-second cures. Back in the day of tennis, before there was what is now a random 25-second clock in between serves for the server. It's erroneous and pathetic and ridiculous because servers used to play a lot quicker anyway. And he found on average most pros took an average of 16 seconds between points. Point ends, they go get the next ball and they go through their rituals. Usually one of the first things that I do and teach is get your racket in your non-dominant hand. So as a right-handed player, if you play for 90 minutes and your racket never leaves your right hand in that vice grip, good luck playing relaxed and in flow. So get the racket out of that hand, toss in your left, maybe shake this out a little bit. There's usually enough time for you to recognize, and I coach this constantly, is you don't focus on the mistake, you focus on the correction. So recognize the mistake, and then give yourself, now that you have that downtime, what is the correction I need to make? And being in the high negative is a good thing. The difference between high negative and low negative is when the body slumps, you go into that place of defeatist body language and mentality. High negative is let's fucking go, slap on the thigh. You don't live in that space, but something like that gives you that charge. And then you do have to do something with your eyes. If your eyes are it's so easy to talk about lose focus, to go, okay, oh my gosh, they're watching me, or, oh, look at that. Oh, they're winning on court too. It's easy to do that. So that's why so many players bring their eyes to their strings, or bring their eyes to, maybe they look right at their opponent across the net. Something with the eyes to lock back in. And then you go into whether you're returning serve or serving, that's when you go into your ritual. And, I usually pick, one sort of plan. When it's your serve, you're picking your spot, and then return, it's okay, I'd like to do this with my return. And then beyond that, you really can't plan 2, 3, 4 shots ahead because the ball's out of your court. So having some sort of plan and sequence like that, a lot of that is, I think it very, very similar to golf, although different in a way. Tennis is mostly downtime. The points are brief. So many matches are really won and lost in terms of your ability to reset, refresh, refocus, reinvigorate yourself. And really never lose. I referenced this from the Rafa documentary, and he said, there's not going to be a mental reason why I lose this place. I'm going to be 100% because that's something I control, especially in between, is I have 100% influence over what I will do in between points. And that is going to be rock solid. With that, what my opponent does with the ball when it's on their side of the net, that's totally out of my control. I can respond as best I can to that. And I've found, just like I said, from personally, because at 12 years old, Brooke, playing on clay tennis, I used to break rackets because I did not have the emotional control that I do now. And it's, thankfully I have that experience, and I know how many matches I lost because of that. It's not that someone was necessarily appreciably better than me with their strokes or with their game, is I beat myself. And that's really not a proposition that I engage with anymore, if I can help it.
God, you shared so many good things here. Athletes listening, your eyes are your mind.
Yes.
Controlling your eyes will give you, like, as a golfer, I can't watch other people's swings. I'm like impressionable. Like I can like pick up their, like I don't watch their game. I don't even care. I'm just like, I hit a shot and then I focus on the birds and the trees because I want to detach from the stress and kind of charge back up before I'm going to demand this presence out of me. There's so many things that you said I want to hit on. Question. Do you know what you do? You walked me through a beautiful breath routine of a serve, which I'm sure so many tennis coaches are like, holy shit, when do I inhale? When do I exhale?
Yeah.
Where do you keep your tongue?
Oh, well, thanks to you. I mean, I have a good gut check on, I mean, especially while I play in between points. I neglected to mention this. It's been a minute, even though I'm just now into singles season, that I've really been, because I've played doubles all winter
Okay.
and mixed doubles, and so the uh, fatigue factor really isn't there as much in doubles. But now that it's singles, if I am feeling a little winded, a mighty breath is one of my greatest tools, and so I ensure as best I can that my tongue is on the roof of my mouth where it belongs. And so, especially in between serve, to make a good quality breath, is I
Mm.
start there. Like, it's very rare that I'm stepping to the line, big, mouth wide open. That's why we have the time in between to collect your breath, so that, because I mean, I'm sure I have before, but I really can't imagine stepping in the line with the stress factor of, sometimes you really can't help it. But if I can get
Yeah.
one good, then I'm in a much better place. And I always feel the difference if my tongue is engaged in that way, because that's just structure, and that's what supports my ability to then execute with strength.
The lifting of the posterior tongue also engages parts of the vagus nerve.
Mm.
So my dad has noticed a significant change in his
Oh
putting.
yeah.
My dad's putting
Oh.
lights out, and he's like, "I do your mewing thing." It's like really helped because it's this a little so because in when you're golfing, right? There's moments where you have a lot of body tension, and then when you're putting, a 5 footer, there's you have to kind of generate your body tension so that you're kind of locked into the position. And so the tongue has become this like real indicator of like settled precision of internal
Hmm.
tension with your breath. So anyway, I'm throwing that in
Yeah,
there.
I'm with you.
Your golf, when you were saying that you want to flip your head up, try this. I want you to not just look at the golf ball. I want you to look at the exact front of it. And like boxers, my grandfather was a professional boxer, and it's like he couldn't punch anybody. His fists were noted like they were weapons. And he said, Brooke, you don't punch people in the face, you punch through their skull. So you aim through their skull. So when I am on the golf course, when I'm over the ball on the drive, I have a very specific spot, like basically through the ball, that I'm looking at. So it's like the front forward, and I'm holding my eyes very specifically on that one little dimple so
Mm.
that my eyes don't get bored. As coaches, the more precise we make it, then we play these games with our mind, and that gives the body access more to, it gives, in a sense, the body access to do its thing when we give the mind something to hyperfixate on. So I keep my eyes there, and then I focus. For me, the pre-shot that you described was so beautiful. In golf, for me, I have 14 questions before I pick the club. Once those are answered, then when I pull the club from the bag, I have 65 seconds to hit the shot. So when I stand behind the ball, I stand 2 paces behind. I lock in on my target, and I'm usually trying to picture something in the landscape that helps me iron it. And I almost turn that into like a pillar of light. So
Mm.
I'm literally shutting down in my vision anything on the right, anything on the left, and I am just focused on the pillar of light, or like a round, if I'm closer to the green, like a round hula hoop where I'm picturing the ball. And then in my head, all I say to myself is the yardage. So like if you could hear my thoughts, I sound like a psychopath. I'm like 172, 172, 172. And so I'm behind the ball. I'm picturing my shot. I have the column of light. I inhale 1 pace, 2 pace. I set my club lined up to this little piece of whatever in front of my ball so that I know I'm in alignment with my target. And then as I start to look down, I start to exhale and I push everything out. I set my feet into position and I squeeze the breath out so I'm super empty. And then as I inhale, like as soon as I get empty, I take a
Mm.
huge inhale and then I just crack the whip. And I focus on my foot, my weight driving into a very specific spot. I call it 3, and it's right underneath like my big toe and the ball of the foot. And like what I am grading myself on is so after I hit the shot, you exhale, so I'm like, then as I exhale, what I'm doing is I am measuring, did I hit the shot I wanted? Did I weight transfer? and did I keep my balance? And that's how I grade myself. Whatever happens, if a bird hits it mid-flight, it's never happened, but I'm just saying, like, the wind ramps up, or maybe I did my math wrong. So whatever happens to the shot, I give myself data feedback, which keeps the emotions out of it.
Right.
Did I hit the shot I want? Did it hit a sprinkler head and jump in the water? Like, you can't, there's some frictionless conversations. Like, I did the best I can. I was a little quick. And for me, quick is, did I open my shoulders or did I slide my hips too fast? So there's an internal conversation of self-correction that I can have as an athlete out there. But the quicker I make it through those conversations, the less energy, the less friction I use. And then it's just back to the birds and the trees,
Yeah.
letting it be
Yeah.
what it is. Hit it, hut it, hole it. Like, if I hit a bad shot or a good shot, I think that my superpower is hitting bad shots and recovering unpredictably. And my opponents will be like, "Man, I thought you were out of it," and it's like, "Yeah,
Not me, baby. Nope. You're gonna have to kill me. No, that and credit to you, because that is, I mean, I'm tickled just thinking of you going through that rubric in preparation and then shortly thereafter. And I constantly remind people, I say, your ability to self-assess what you did well or what you need to improve upon is infinitely more important than me observing that to you, because I'm not in your body. I don't know, exactly what you're telling yourself, and I can give you some cues and things like that. And still, I like to provide people with some information. I mean, we're playing on the same court, and people don't even know that it's 78 feet long, and from the center of the baseline, it's only, you'll appreciate this, it's only 19 degrees wide. A little more than that for a doubles court. That is not a lot of space for people with 180-degree swings going way across their body, trying to keep a ball basically on a narrow sidewalk. And so I love the idea of even just 172, like these fixation points that still, even though you have a fixation and your ability to catalog and then go seamlessly through all of that, I think those are the skills that require a high degree of self-awareness and body awareness for people. And I'm keen to find a way to bring that a little bit more to tennis, to still be in open focus. That's my point with fixation, is you can have that intense level of focus, and that is the mind, or that is your brain or your eyes going there. There are so many other parts of ourselves that are still in play. And there are so many other elements of you that can, just take over and still get you where you need to go. And, I think of, especially with tennis, that because the ball is moved, the targets really don't change, and you're not always trying to hit it away from someone. You're really trying to keep, as I tell people, the first opponent is you and your ability to, bring the best of yourself into a shot. The next is the net, and then you got to keep it in play widthwise and lengthwise, and then you're playing the opponent. It's like chess. Are you playing the board, or do you play your opponent? And yes, it's a combination of both, but you're limited in your moves. And I think, just to draw one more parallel to golf, I wish people had more of a golfer's mindset in two respects when it comes to tennis, is the amount of deliberate, monotonous, painstaking practice of, especially an immobile ball that you're just hitting over and over again with different intentions for sure, and thinking that even though we play with one racket, treating it like I've got a bag full of clubs. Is if you're only playing with a 7-iron or with a 3-wood, good luck. If you're only playing at one speed with your tennis racket, good luck. No, you need to be able to develop different speeds, shapes, and spins, and that's that's the creative aspect is. And you have to be in some degree of relaxation for that. And that's why I have shifted my in the gym training to what has become now known as nervous system training, the ability to go from that reflex to relaxation instantly, and not having grinding reps with a barbell or a dumbbell or things like that. That there was a place for that in my development, and now I am enjoying so many more fruits of feeling springy, bouncy, resilient, unstoppable, because I trained that ability to reflex, reset, relax, and go from
bro."
there. And that's the playfulness aspect that I love.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate calling it nervous system training. Can we call it dangerous training?
You said dangerous training? Fuck yeah. Yeah.
It's
No,
like we're becoming more dangerous people. Like, now I look
that
at
is the feeling. Yes.
I look at my old exercises and how I'm training now. I'm doing pistol squats and then jumping on a pull-up bar, ripping on a pull-up, and then doing like a
Oh, you
whole,
Amazon.
I am
Yeah.
really having a good, and I look crazy in there, but I'm just like, man, in 15 minutes. not only is it a full body workout, but I feel like I'm becoming more dangerous. My
Yeah.
low lunges, my side lunge, like I'm moving like a ninja, and I'm just like, man, this is it. This is
Me
how.
too. I have these water weights. I don't know if you've seen these, but they look like kettlebells more without the handle, and
Yeah.
there's maybe 2 pounds of water in there. But how violently I can move those
Uh-huh.
over 30 seconds, and things that I'm doing on the Swiss ball, smacking it with my heel, as like a bridge and things like that. Just moving so much more violently, which yeah makes me feel dangerous is the word, because yeah, nervous system training does not by any means do it
It
justice,
just
and
doesn't
so
excite me. It's like
no,
I
it
want to
doesn't. No,
become
it
a more
doesn't.
dangerous person.
Yeah, I try to say it's like ballistic training, or I mean, yeah, I was gonna say violence training, but danger
Huh.
train, danger movements, danger
It's
training.
in golf. I sometimes like I'm out there and the guys will be like, "What is that?" Like I play from the men's tees all the time, and the
Yeah, of
guys are
course.
relentless with me. They're just like, "We're playing back. You gotta play back." There's no handicap for Brooke.
Yeah, no.
And sometimes like I just don't have it right out the gate. And I'll just like little pop a little one. It's like, what's wrong, Brooke? It's like I needed more violence there. I'm sorry. I just have to, I have to like pull the violence into my body. And I feel like
Oh yeah.
that's the weird thing. If you're working out with the sets and reps for a number, you're not really dropping into this like violence. And I don't know about you, but I've played a game recently with my rep count. So I'm doing these like weird acrobatic movements, and I'm trying to do 4. And then once I get to 4, I try to get to 8. Once I get to 8, I make it harder. And then I fight to go back to 4. And it's really fun for me to just count to 4. I'm realizing like, wow, I'm really over counting to 20. Like I don't want to do things that I can do 20 of, you know what I mean? I want to do really hard things that I can almost do 4 of, and then build off of that advanced, like I've been playing a lot with balance exercise. So like a pistol squat, but on top of a wobble disc. And then trying to rep out a couple. And then like when that gets easy, throwing something in your hands that makes you lopsided. So you have to explore how your feet can restabilize you. What's something that you've been doing? I know we're kind of.
We're in good shape. Yeah.
What is the most fun thing that you've been doing with your body lately?
Uh, Rhythm training, and a lot of that is very much akin to dancing. I mean, I go into the gym with that open, playful attitude of I'm going to do my best to be inspired to move in a certain way, and and the balance elements as well, as I've definitely challenged my balance more than ever, and still trying to do it violently, trying to do it on one leg, trying to do it, you know, with just the balls of my feet on the ground, and still see how violently I can move. But the rhythm training has been really fun. So I posted this the other day. Is I just have a cross of tape, and that alone, just having 4 quadrants to work with, has unlocked so many fun multi-directional, multi-planar movements. And one of my favorite ones has been I'll put on some song, if it's like Afro jazz or something with a good beat to it. It's not one that I need
Mm-hmm.
to know the exact BPM, but like a fun one for me was I'm leading with one foot like a boxer. So, I'm pretending I'm a southpaw, so my right foot is leading. And I do my best to go through as many sequences as I can of touching. I'm right over the center of that cross, but I try to touch 12 o'clock, then 3, then 6, then 9, then 12, then 3. And then from there, I go to chaos. I'll go from 3 to 9 to 6 to 12. And, try to surprise myself along the way. So it's rhythm in that unpredictable fashion. And all the while, I'm trying to spiral around myself, my center. I have found the difference between what it's like when I get way off and I try to force with, my foot reaching too much or my head going one way. I get the feedback. And I've found many other different instances, not just doing similar things with my hands, taking a Swiss ball and how quickly can I bounce it against the wall and change up my tempo. Metronome training has been super fun. I employ that for tennis as well. You laugh, why?
No, because my brother, when I have gotten to the level with my musicianship and my golf, where all of the coaches on both sides are like, you have to metronome chain. And it's like, when you do that, it just doesn't stop in your head sometimes. Like, you're like an hour away from metronome training and your head is still like, click, click, click. Anyway, so you
Yeah,
sound
so
like my brother. Like, you have to metronome train.
well, it's been so fun, and I brought it to people on the tennis court because rhythm is something of a nebulous term that people use, whether it's your serve rhythm, but strokes have rhythm as well. And they're called strokes for a reason.
Hmm.
They're supposed to be, I mean, it's a string instrument as your racket. It's strung and you stroke the ball. It doesn't have to be crushed or walloped. I get the ball is evil and it must be punished, but we got to give some grace to it. And the metronome, like I bring that to people to help people from ready position for one. Turn is two, bottom of your swing is three, four is contact, five is finish, and you reset. And we'll do that at 40 beats per minute, and then we'll do it at 140, which turns into basically just a turn and swing. But having people have checkpoints along the way. And then when I do that with plyometrics of skipping rope, and first is, and then it's anything like that, just to have different ranges, different speeds. And because, I mean, like I said, if we're only one speed, that's a one-dimensional player, and those are easily beaten. So yeah, since I didn't grow up as a musician, even though I have a lot of love for music and singing, this has been my expression. This is my instrument, so I get to play with this as often as possible, and I find any opportunity, any invitation to tune into what are the different tempos and ranges and speeds that I can play in. I find that immense fun always.
Tom, it has been a pleasure and a delight to hang out with you. Where can people find you to learn more and to work with you?
I am at Home Court Health on Instagram. My podcast is certainly taking a bend toward mostly focused on holistic health. And as we alluded to earlier, that can touch so many aspects of our lives. So there's really no limit to that. And excitingly, as I mentioned earlier, I'm partnering with Jared and Edmund for Be Here Farm and Nature as we are commencing the Being Human in Your Body program as of this evening. And when this podcast comes out later this month, we'll be really beginning in earnest in July. And that will run till the end of the year. And it's every 2 weeks. We do sessions where we focus on different embodiment practices that were inspired by Rudolf Steiner to, as my friend Edmund put it when he gave his main stage talk at Confluence, to feel more free in your body, to have a relationship to the different aspects of yourself in pursuit of self mastery that you can then express with much more freedom and little stagnations, little friction that's self imposed. And so that's a first for me to be able to be involved in that program logistically and also as an enthusiastic participant, because that's one of my core currencies is enthusiasm for things. And I am in this process of doing all the hard yards and the good work, inspired by people like yourself, to expand my reach and being able to offer programs and services online, building on my foundational curriculum called Creating Charge, which is really the essentials of health, which are I mean, they're world-class basics is how I describe them. And still, people they can be easily overlooked. To think about something like the rhythm of your breath, I mean, there's so much free energy there. And then I also offer a program called Brilliant Body, which has more to do with chronic illness and embracing the terrain philosophy of health, that your body has never made a mistake. I'll say it again, your body has never made a mistake. So if we can embrace that type of paradigm, I mean, that is supremely freeing as well. And then my ultimate offering is Athletic Alchemy, which is bringing in danger training, training the balance, training vision, training proprioception, training fascia, doing it in a ballistic way that enhances your ability to problem solve on the fly. And I'm excited to bring that to my in-person community and find a way to do it online as well. So this is the year to build, Brooke. And I think admiration is another rare currency. And I have a wealth of admiration for you, your presence, your impact, your unfettered and truly limitless energy that you bring towards service of people, and being that coach that helps people to modify their behavior and therefore enter into an entirely new story that maybe their imagination couldn't envision before. And you really said that imagination is the magic word, because that is where it all begins. Before anything has ever manifested outwardly, it started with the imagination. And very much a parallel to health is, first you have to write and conceive of a vital health story, and then we go live it.
You're so eloquent. It's so nice to hang out with you. And I adore the joy that you bring to your work, because to behavior modify, to use our imaginations, we first have to have the joy. And I see great things coming from you, Tom. I think that this is just the beginning. I thank you so much for your time and energy, and I love you.
I love you. Thanks for making it easy and fun.